There's a few there.
Hey everyone, sorry about the late start. We had some technical difficulties today. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for our Dairy Cattle Show Ethics 101, Best Practices for Exhibitors. And I'd like to welcome Doug Courtman, who is the chair of the Show Ethics Committee currently in New Zealand. So I'm going to just straight away hand it over to Doug. If the way that the webinar is set up, as our previous ones, if you have any questions, please just put them in the chat or the Q&A function, and then we will just go through those questions once Doug's covered off everything he wants to, and just, yeah, so feel free to add them as we go, or you can add them at the end as well. But I'll hand it over to you. Thanks, Doug.
Oh, welcome. Thanks, Amelia. Yeah, so the Code of Show Ethics was set up with about 8 years ago now, but we sort of started doing a bit of background work sort of 10 to 15 years ago. There was a couple of things. There was a lot of animal rights activists going at the time, and they're probably still out there now, but at the time they were a novelty. And they were generally people who weren't very privy to handling animals and so forth, and what we consider normal practice on farms or with animal treatments can be construed a wrong way if the photos or the, set up to tell a different story. So there's a group of us that worked quite closely with the Australian Holstein Australia board for quite a few years, and they set up their own code of ethics, and they based theirs on the Canadian system, because most countries do have a code of ethics. And the main thing with the code of ethics is it protects the breed associations if there are any likes of animal rights people come up with something, or there are issues with animal treatments. The members and the breed societies have some protection, and that they have got a animal well-being sort of plan, which is basically what the code of ethics is a well-being plan really for animals. So we based our code of ethics on the Australian model. We studied the Canadian one as well and the Australian one, and then we had to modify them to meet conditions in New Zealand. There's slightly different setups, the way the shows are run, and who the governing bodies of the show. So in New Zealand we have the Royal Agricultural Society, which basically the bulk of shows are run under their guidelines. So we came up with a plan, and then we met with the Royal Ag Society to see if they were willing to support us and get the code of ethics document as part of their rule book. So the first meeting we had was around April 2014, March 2014, sorry, and we involved all the breeds. So we've got the Code of Ethics Committee consists of a member of all the breed societies. So the 6 main breeds have all got representatives on the committee. I was elected chairman at the time, and Sherilyn is secretary administrator. And we also have a member of the Royal Ag Society on the committee as well, as a link between the two. And so, and all of the breed societies have nominated people that have got some sort of background in showing, really. Most of the people on the committee you'll see at most of the major, be represented at most of the major shows. So that's how it was set up. And the plan with the Code of Ethics is as a protection for members and breed associations and for the animals concerned, because it's an animal well-being document, really. So we've been running. We think it's about 2016. We were agreed. We had the show Code of Ethics. It's called the Royal. It's got a big long title, but its show Code of Ethics document was passed into the rule book of the Royal Ag Society. And since then, there's some basic practices that we can test for, or and most of you will be aware of the scanning that's taken place using John Marr from Australia. He has been coming over. That the committee allows for up to 2 shows a year to be scanned at, because it's really expensive bringing John Marr over from Australia. He has to bring his scanning gear and so forth. And so we try and do 2 shows a year, but as most of you will be aware, it's fielding, the dairy event at fielding is probably a major one that we go to most years now. Not every year, but most years, and people expect us to be there. But I think since the Royal Ag Society Dairy Cattle Show Code of Ethics, that's the title I was trying to think of before, was put in place, it's received pretty positive feedback from the show community, really. At least there is some guidelines for what is allowed and what is considered violations. So if you're a young person coming through the ranks, really, if you've been through Calf Club, or you've been through or young farmers or whatever, that sort of showing, nothing you do there is considered unethical or whatever. You know, you clean your animals and you can shine them up, you can shampoo them, you can paint their hooves to shine them up, you can sprinkle glitter on them and all that sort of thing. External things like that are quite okay. There's no problems with most things that people do in the showgrounds, but there are some practices that are not condoned by the Ethics Committee, and most of them relate to the fair treatment of an animal and an animal's well-being. So where do we go now? Amelia, do you want to go over some of the practices, or
yeah, do you want to just go through some of the things, like the main points that are in the code? for people. There were some changes made within the last couple of years. There was an A4 page that came out, I want to say last year, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. So even if you just go through kind of what was on that and the reasons for it.
Yeah, just the changes evolved from, just as time passes, different things change. But for the last couple of years, we've met with a group of the main group of the fitters that go around the shows, and got their feedback on what they think's maybe not fair, but not practical in the code of ethics. So we have made some minor changes. Some haven't come into. We haven't agreed with everything that the fitters wanted, but we've listened. We've tried to listen and tried to allow some practices that they, people see as not harmful to animals or not fair sort of things. So, like I was saying before, any external applications of cosmetics, the old hoof polish and the clear magic and glitter and fake switches and so forth on their tails, there's no problem with any of that sort of thing. And you can treat others with externally with adamant or washing them or those like those tanning things and all that sort of stuff that adds a bit of colour in and all that sort of thing. There's no problem with that because it doesn't affect the cow at all. It's if you do anything internally to the cow's teats or other that's where the scanning picks up. You can and just going on to the allowed practices, if you have to treat an animal or you have to use something or you are using something like the oxytocin or the anti-inflammatories or whatever, you need to have available with you on your exhibitor declaration, and you have to have any drugs you use must be prescribed by a veterinarian and okay to be used in a therapeutic way. So you should always have your annual vet plan. They used to be called a PAR, but I see now they're called an annual animal wellbeing plan that everybody has to go through with their vets if they want to get drugs for your farm and all that sort of thing. So if you're using anything that's any sort of drugs or that at a show, they have to be prescribed by your vet and be part of that animal wellbeing, available on an animal wellbeing plan that is available to be at showgrounds. Hang on, just change pages. Yeah, so all normal safe animal practices are allowed. Things, minor violations. In the minor violations, you've got sort of like the normal one is the unsportsmanlike conduct, which is something that we don't like to see that, and that's something that's rammed home in the young youth camps and things like that. It's it's another competition, but you've got to be fair to all your competitors and fellow handlers and exhibitors and so forth. And so we don't like to see any unsportsmanlike conduct. You can manipulate your top line, so forth, and the tail heads and so forth, but only up as far as 3.8 centimetres. Centimetres. And that's about 1.5 inches, I think it is. And in the early days, we had our little measuring sticks and tried measuring it, but because most of our shows are in the middle of summer, animals very rarely get enough hair on their top lines to actually get anywhere close to that. So I measured a couple of Ayrshire calves one year that I thought they looked real excessive, but they were still underneath the measurement by quite a way. So that's a worldwide sort of measurement. That's 3.8 centimetres, and yeah, like I say, nobody's ever got close to it in New Zealand at the shows we've been to anyway. But with that top line, you can only use the naturally grown hair to fill in the gaps or something. Yeah, not anything foreign, just natural hair. The other one we have had a little bit of trouble with is ice bars and so forth. There's no problem with using blocks, cubes of ice and in a like small towel or something, and rubbing the udders to try and stimulate the udder a little bit. But ice bars are there to conceal faults, really, and so they are banned, as are bottles, frozen bottles, and all that sort of thing that people try to use to enhance the central ligament. But ice on its own, cubes of ice or cold towels or products on the outside is all right, as long as they're not an ice bar. It's not that comfortable for the cow, and you're actually enhancing a internal part of the cow, really. Yeah, those are the minor things that either are allowed or aren't allowed. There are major violations, and I would, a lot of them come down to practices that aren't sort of condoned now, that would go back to a long time back. Adding treatments internally to the udders, or the other with external is those electric, what do you call them? Electric stimulating things. It's on here somewhere. I can't find anything now. But anyway, yeah. I don't know. It's where else do you want to go?
Sorry, I have a list of questions that were sent in to us, so I can.
That could be a better idea.
Start with that, and then if anyone else has got any questions, they can fire them through. Does that sound like a good idea?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Sorry, they're all in my phone. So you mentioned before scanning the udders. So what are they actually looking for specifically? And so, like, what's their purpose behind it?
You're looking for udder edema. So basically that is, if an udder's been filled up too tight, the milk actually leaks out of the milk sac parts or milk and leaks into the outer layer of skin on the udder. And so that's quite damaging for the cow and really painful for the cow. So John Marr worked with a university in America and developed the scanning machine, or the scanning, reading a scan. So he can look at it, and he's quite happy showing people on the showgrounds too, if just what he's looking for. But any milk that sort of leaks out of where it's supposed to be and shows up as black, as a black, like a black line or black image, and it's quite painful for the cow, and so that's the basis behind the scanning. You can also, if there is other treatments, like internal, somebody's got other drugs or gas, or tried to fill the udder with a foreign substance, that can be picked up as well. But we've never had any of that problem ever since the scanning was in. We've just had some minor cases of udder edema, which we've sort of dealt with. Normally, it's a fine line for fitters and exhibitors getting their cows bagged up to a good, a show state, and so they're it's quite easy to flip over the boundary of a safe practice and into what we consider that, sort of an animal welfare issue. And the scanning is it has 4 levels of when John does it. There's 4 sort of levels he measures, and most people come under level 1, which is a safe measure. Level 2, you're starting to get borderline. You put any more milk in, and you're either going to damage the ligament on the udder, or you'll start to get that milk seeping. Levels 3 and 4 are quite extreme, and you have a big pool of milk sitting between the udder sac and the skin on the outside. We've never had a level 4. We've only had a couple of level 3s, and people have just mistimed their run, and they've been dealt with by the Show Ethics Committee. So scanning, we're looking. It's basically nowadays is udder edema, but it will pick up foreign substances in the udder as well. But we've never had to deal with any of that since we've been doing it. So you're looking mainly at an animal welfare thing, which is the udder edema.
So you mentioned the levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that we haven't reached any 4s. But from a showing perspective, if you do get a 4, what does that mean for you?
John gives us a summary of when he's scanning. He gives us a summary of the results. Any level, we've only ever had to deal with a level 3, but a level 3 results in a not a complaint, but it is dealt with by the Show Ethics Committee. And there's a series of procedures there. The committee will meet following the show and hear the background to the level 3 result, and make a plan from there. If it's just the first time, an exhibitor's had a complaint laid against them, generally it's just a warning and an explanation of what's gone wrong on our, what we've seen has gone wrong, and we generally get an explanation from the exhibitor that it's, they've made a mistake and just got their timing completely wrong, really, or yeah. So because we've only, like I say, we've only had a couple of instances, and yeah, the people, the exhibitors concerned have admitted that they've mistimed their bagging of the cows. So it's I think since we've had the scanning available, people are a lot more careful now and not trying to push the boundaries so much. And so from an animal welfare perspective, it's doing its job. The scanning is doing its job. That yeah, because like I say, it's all tied in with animal welfare, and we don't want extreme. Yeah.
So
yeah.
So John, this dairy event just been, John, and you guys changed the rules in a little bit in that you got them to just scan every animal, whereas previous years you have done like first and second in a random cow.
Yep.
Know that doing it that way is the same as what they do at IDW. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, but the animal just has to be scanned once. That's correct. So it doesn't have to come back in. And that animal can be scanned at any time before or after its class, correct? Like you don't have to just bring it in straight after its class or straight before it goes into his class. You can bring it in, if the class before it's getting ready to go in, you can bring your animal then in and get it done, and then save bringing it in afterwards. John's normally happy with that to happen.
Yeah, it's it works a lot better if everybody just goes straight from, like as we did it this year at Fielding. If the bulk of the exhibitors came straight out of the ring and straight through the scanning procedure. But if people are busy, with animals, a whole team of animals sort of coming one after the other, it's no problem doing it later on, as long as we know that you're coming back to bring your cow back, and your cow has to be done before the end of the day, before she's milked anyway. The only downside to doing it later on is your cow has had that much more time to put more milk in, so she might have already been finished in the ring, but she's still got to pass the scanning, and you're sort of taking a bit more of a chance if you leave it till later in the day. There are some that have left it till the end of the day mainly because they've been tied up, they've won their class or so forth and gone straight to championships or and then followed it, or had best starter and then championships, and just haven't really had a chance to get out of the ring. But the bulk of people comes at this year, when we did it, came straight through the scanner, straight out of their class, out of the ring, and it worked pretty well. Yeah, there's some, we sort of try and help out. So yeah, I know that there were some exhibitors that sort of had 3 animals in one ring, and then they had 2 lining up for the next class. Well, we're quite happy hanging on to a cow or 2 for people to, while they get their handlers, juggle handlers around and so forth like that. But yeah, because they all wanted to get their cows scanned straight away. So it worked quite well. There are a lot of shows overseas where they scan before they go in the ring. And if there's any anomalies, you don't go in the ring. So there's a lot of shows that do that, and I think there's a couple in Australia. Adelaide, I think, is one. and John Maher used to do a lot in South America, where that same thing, they were scanned before they went in the ring. So
IDW's like that now. They get scanned before they go in the ring, and if there's any issues, they do not enter the ring.
Yeah. It's an option we've got here. We haven't done that yet, but people, yeah. I think what we did last year, scanning everybody, went pretty well. Really, it was pretty well received. There was a little bit of negative to the the first section and a random, first second, and then a random. That there was a little bit of negative to the random, but it's just one of those things. As time goes on, you come up with different procedures, ways of doing things, and still a relatively new, new system. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what are the card systems, and how is it used, and why is it used?
What card system is it?
I'm guessing it's the way that people are given their warnings. So you get do you do it that you have like a system in the way that they get their warnings, or is it just a case by case situation rather than your first warning?
So far it's just been a case by case. If any exhibitors are getting sort of borderline on that level 2, will quite often, or John or I or somebody will, or one of the committee will just have a quiet word and say that that cow, or John might show them on the screen that the cow's getting borderline. If it's more than level 2, the level 3 things, we have a talk to the exhibitor, and just remembering we've only done it a couple of times for level 3. It's not a very common occurrence. We've had a chat to the exhibitor and just and you also realise it's after they've already been in the ring, so it's a bit late to do, and none of them are being placed. So we have a chat to the exhibitor and just to let them know that there will be a charge, or it will be going before the Show Ethics Committee. Once we've got the report from John Maher, which usually comes a week or two afterwards, the full report, which normally has photos of the scans with it, and we take that to the Show Ethics Committee, and it's up to the committee to make a decision whether, and like I say before, it's normally just been as long as it's a first time occurrence, it's just a warning against that exhibitor. But we haven't had a card system. The only cards we used to have was when we were doing the first, seconds, and randoms, because those cards were handed to John at the scanning machine, and it's a way of ticking off who's been through and who hasn't. Now, last year when we did everybody in the classes, we just ticked it off against the program. So we didn't use the cards last year, or those little strips of paper.
Oh, yeah. So, and if you just go away from doing that, like other issues specifically, yeah, thanks, Shelley. More like your warning card system overall. So, like if it's their first violation versus like on a minor inconvenience, like you've said earlier, or if it's like a major violation, where do you stand on that kind of a card system? So your first issue, you've been caught for the first time, and say you're a level 3 udder scan versus someone that's their second time, like how do you rank that kind of a warning system, like a warning penalty system?
Well, any complaints go to the Ethics Committee, and bearing in mind that we haven't had people accumulating warnings on the scanning process, and it's up to the committee to make a decision. And the Code of Ethics has got a if somebody wants to read through it, it's got a whole procedure for handling of complaints, and the likes of the complaint, the level 3 complaints, the exhibitors have just been issued with a warning. It is recorded in the minutes of the meeting, and if there's other violations later on, it could be used. It could be could come into play, but so far that's never happened. So people have been very careful. We don't really have a each complaint's dealt with by the Ethics Committee, and it's just records in the minutes so far.
Okay.
Sorry, the card thing. We don't use the RAS's. They got yellow cards and red cards or something, or I don't know much about it, but I know they have got a card system. But that's more for well, it's not part of our system anyway. Put it that way.
Okay. All right, I have things happening in the chat section. So with overseas fitters coming into New Zealand, what is something we need to look at before getting one, such as what information is being notified to exhibitors before bringing them in, and how do we get that information available to exhibitors?
Well, the whole Code of Ethics is on the if all the breed societies have got it on their websites, and then there's the summarised version which covers most things. If you wanted, it's only a two-page document, the summary, which goes over the practices that are allowed, and basically you want to know about the practices that aren't allowed, really. But I think you'll find that most of the fitters, they're working with the same rules in the countries they come from now. Like I say, ours was based on the Australian document, and they based theirs on the Canadian document. And, we looked at both, and we had to alter ours a little bit just to fit in with the RAS rules, really. And we've got slightly different oversight. The RAS over here is a lot has oversight of nearly every show in New Zealand, whereas in Australia they don't. Their equivalent doesn't, and that's why some shows have got different standards to others. But all the Royal Ag shows in Australia go under their Code of Ethics document that they have.
So if someone has received a violation, let's say in Australia, and have lost the right to fit over there, is there a way for people in New Zealand to be aware of that so that they don't pay to bring someone over that theoretically then cannot do the job here in New Zealand? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but if you can't fit in Australia, you can't fit in New Zealand?
We have got a reciprocal agreement with Australia that any bans or any violations that have been gone before the ethics committee, and there's any charges that have been proven or whatever, we do notify Holstein Australia, and Holstein Australia do notify us of any problems they've had over at their end. So that was that's how things are supposed to work there.
And is there a way for our like exhibitors? So like if I was bringing someone over to fit my cows for me, because everybody knows I'm amazing at fitting, and so I would definitely need help. Like, is there a way for me to find that list, or who do I contact? Do I get in contact with the committee and say, hey, I'm looking at bringing this person over. Can you tell me whether or not that's going to be okay? Or am I better to go through like Holstein Australia, or what?
You're a bit tricky now, because we haven't got under, well, sort of like human rights legislation, you don't have the right to go and make public any decisions you make outside of your own membership. And the Show Ethics Committee, if they make a decision, we've only made a couple in the time. We advise the Breed Society that's affected, the Royal Ag Society, and the show where some complaints were laid. So it's not something for public, or whatever you call it. Yeah, it's not public knowledge sort of thing. It's I don't quite know how else to explain it. Yeah.
So there's no way for someone that's bringing a fitter in to know, unless that fitter tells them themselves, which I can guarantee if they're getting paid to come over here, they're less likely to do that. There's no way for you to just be like, look, I want to bring in Joe Bloggs. Can you tell me if he's all good?
The only way we would know is if, say, you're bringing somebody from Australia or Canada, from Australia, is if Holstein Australia advises us, and it's probably not really public knowledge, safe public, to broadcast that sort of thing. Normally, I think they've only ever charged a few people over the years as well, so it's not, your chances of getting somebody that have been banned for something are pretty slim, really. The most people now are working under the same rules everywhere, so they're well aware of what the rules are. But yeah, it's a little bit tricky. There's an agreement between Holstein Australia and Holstein New Zealand. If we have anything, for the other breeds, I'm not sure how they go about it, but that's just the two Holstein associations agreed to work together on reciprocal agreements because of the fitters coming, and it's not always fitters either. There's other, I know that they've had some bans with some exhibitors rather than the fitters at times too over there, but there's no public way of knowing really, Amelia, sorry.
Okay. So if you're at a show and you see something happen that you're not sure if it's okay, what is the best way to approach that with someone without necessarily getting the person in trouble?
Well, your show stewards are your first port of call. If it's something more major, the Show Ethics Committee can deal with complaints, but to make a complaint, you need some evidence, so like photographic evidence or whatever. At the major shows, there's generally some senior steward type people, like or representatives of the Show Ethics Committee quite often at most of the big shows. That if you're not sure of something, you know, if you've seen something happen that you're not sure of, that you could check up with, or if you're sure that there's some illegal practice going on, if you get a record of it, and it's preferable to get some sort of backup. Yeah, somebody else to back you up or whatever, and make a complaint to the Show Ethics Committee. Yeah, the Ethics Committee is there to handle complaints. So we'd like to think that people, generally play by the rules, if you like, but yeah. You know, there is a whole procedure set out, and then there's a not a discipline committee. There'll be a committee set up within the Show Ethics Committee that there's a procedure for dealing with complaints in the Show Ethics Committee that Bryce, works on. Sort of like a neutral committee.
So another question for you, is there anything within the ethics for body condition score of the cows? Is that looked at during the shows?
Not strictly body condition scoring, no. Yeah, it's like the show ethics is about safe treatment of animals, so you would expect that cows are in a fairly good condition when they go to the, you know, I know some of them look fairly clean, but they've got to look pretty healthy. What is our? I was trying to find out what our motto is that goes with it, and I can't find it on the document, but healthy animals should be shown. I think it was something like that. But yeah, when I go to find it, I can't find it. So no, there's nothing straight out about body condition scoring or anything. Generally, to get a cow in a good condition for a show, she's a bit better than that.
I think a lot of people, especially new people getting into showing, they look at, especially Holsteins can look quite skinny when they're in, I guess, like in their show clothes versus in their work clothes. And so for I wouldn't say uneducated, but like new people coming into it, they can look skinnier, whereas actually they are in good condition. But when you clip them and preen them all up, they sometimes can look skinnier than what you normally would see them on farm if you saw them the week earlier when she was in the cow shed, kind of thing.
Well, the clipping procedure is there to highlight your clean bone structure and so forth like that. So these fitters, you know, I'm not a fitter or a I have animals that shows, but you know, it's not my job to do anything like that's out of my pay scale. But you know, with the clippers and that they got now, they highlight the ribs and the, you know, all the bone structures and so forth with different size clippers. So Yeah, it can. They can look at it, but you don't normally get it in cow. You used to get it a bit more in the young stock. Some of them were cleaned off, I would have thought, too much, but I don't think that practice is even as prevalent now as it used to be. That the judges are generally farmers as well, and they understand what an animal should be looking like. Yeah, and over time, I think that real, low body composition score animals not presented the way it used to be in earlier days. And you can't, with the dairy cow, you've got to try and make them milk as well. So you've got to keep poking the feed into them, and as long as they look healthy. But as you say before, I know we've just 2 cows have just gone from here to the Waikato show, but I know one of them she'll look pretty dairy by the time she's clipped off. She just naturally doesn't carry a lot of condition, but she's milking like a train. So, but she was still condition score 4 the other day on classifying. So she'll look a lot less than that by the time she's clipped off and everything. But she still has got the meat on her. Yeah.
Has anyone else got any more questions that they want to send through? I don't want to keep you here all night, Doug, or anybody else. So
I'm surprised I've filled out an hour already, Amelia. Sorry.
well, we did start 10 minutes late. So
Oh yeah, okay, righto.
But give 50 minutes, so it's not so bad. So I guess, do you feel like you have created a confidential and safe environment for everyone to feel supported and aware with the committee that you've created?
I think it's I know when we first started scanning, when we first started it, like I say, we've only got a budget to do 2 shows a year, so we were fitting in some smaller shows with basically fielding, or we've done royal. If we haven't done fielding in those earlier days, we did royal shows rather than fielding. I've got a lot of positive feedback on it because there was a lot of I guess it's competitiveness. People, see, so and so's doing something, and there had got to be a lot of negative vibes around showing it, and it had there were a lot of younger breeders that had become a bit disillusioned and not keen on showing. And I think since we've brought in the document and then added on the scanning and other things that we can do, there's a lot more positive. Well, we get positive feedback anyway, and there's a lot of new members taking up showing, and it sort of combines with all the work that the young your youth camps have done and so forth like that. There's people now understand a lot more about what is allowed and what's expected, and I've sort of had a lot of more positive feedback from exhibitors to say that they're comfortable showing now. I think the camaraderie's been a lot stronger the last few years in the show scene. People are sort of helping each other rather than protecting their own little world. And I think it's done its job. And the debate, you have to be careful with, these animal rights people are around everywhere, and if we didn't have a document like this, breed societies and their individual members can be open to a lot of negative well, you could yeah, get a lot of negative media or negative something or other, which is not what we want. We want, at least we've got a set of rules, and if anybody breaks those rules, well, the breed societies are protected from that angle. So no, I think I'm pretty pleased with the way the show ethics thing has worked so far.
So any last comments, Doug, or for anyone like looking to get into showing or anything like that, if they're wanting to try it, or people they can talk to that are out and amongst these shows and things like that they can approach and learn from? Or
I think you'll find any of the sort of senior exhibitors are always only too happy to help now. Like, I don't know, we've had 3 or 4 people, new exhibitors here in the last couple of weeks, just looking at what people will know Annie Girls at my place, and we've had these couple of cows and 3 or 4 calves getting fed ready for the show for the last month, I suppose. And we've had 3 or 4 different exhibitors here coming to look at what we're doing and trying to find, asking what they should be doing. And I think most I'm not a experienced exhibitor. I just have young people that are keen, and I let them go for it on my cows. But there's a lot of the senior exhibitors that are only too happy to give advice and on feeding and the build-ups to shows and all that sort of thing. So there's a lot of like I said earlier on, there's a lot more newer exhibitors out there now around the show scene, and
which is great to see.
Yeah. And I think
nice.
It's a follow on.
It's nice to know that it's not fading away.
Yeah, well, it's not fading away, and yet it's harder for people to do, because a lot of people are involved in big herds now, and the farms just haven't got time to allow showing, really, or allow their staff to go and do showing. So I think we're doing a good job in maintaining the numbers that are going to the shows. So hopefully we can still do that. But yeah, the whole industry is getting so bigger, and the workload's pretty concentrated now. That it's not like old days where you could sort of tootle off and somebody would milk the cows and the rest of the farm would run itself. The farms don't run themselves now. You've got to have people who know what they're doing at the home base while you're away, or while your staff are away, or whatever. No, I think there's a lot of positive out there.
Well, if there's no other questions, I think we might leave it there for tonight. Thank you, Doug, for giving up your time this evening to let us know. And if anyone on here has any other questions about what's in the Show Ethics Committee document or anything like that, how can they get in contact with the Show Ethics Committee?
Well, the document's available on all the breed societies have got it on their websites. Don't ask me whereabouts on their websites, it'll be in there somewhere. And then there is the summarised version of the main points. But anybody on the each breed society's got a member on the Show Ethics Committee. I'm quite happy anybody wants to call me, or and I'm sure it's the same with with Vince Steiner, Tony Bueller, Wendy Harker. There's got to be more. Annabelle Shearer. Yeah.
I'm not sure who the Jersey rep is.
Oh, Jersey's is Barry Montgomery at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the breeds are covered, and most, yeah, and like I said, the document's available on your website, and there is a summarised version that I know Holstein Friesian put out a summarised version, so I assume the others have put it out somewhere in the to their membership, made it available to their membership. But I'm always available, and usually the likes of Pam Gooden and Sherilyn have got a background to it as well. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much, Doug, for your time this evening, and for those joining us. If you've got any questions or anything, you can get in contact with me as well through Holstein Friesian. All right, everyone, enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you.
Bye.
even advertise this webinar. We just pretend it never happens.